A very, very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. Welcome to another week on the show, and welcome to what is a particularly happy Monday, because I'll detail in the news in just a moment. It was a particularly good weekend. Saturday was the 10th edition, the 11th year, one skip through COVID, of the Cape Wine Auction, and it was a tremendous success. The team of the auction put together a wonderful afternoon. The audience was good, rather noisy, but very good and very generous. And we walked away with a very tidy sum of money indeed. And I will be detailing that in just a moment. Part of that auction, members of the Cape Winemakers Guild, who had put together some of the wine that was on offer, including Andries Berger at Paul Kluwer. The Molyneux had some wine as part of a very special auction item that went up for sale. And there was wine from people like Gary Jordan and from Abu Birsla, from Jordan and Canoncop respectively. Just a really good afternoon and a wonderful celebration of the wine community coming together. And that leads rather nicely into today's show, because today's show celebrates one of the foremost institutions, not I think just in South African wine, but indeed wine around the world, because there can't be too many organizations that boast such a caliber of winemaker. The Cape Winemakers Guild has some extraordinary talent and also just some wonderful people. And at the heart of the Cape Winemakers Guild is the coming together of these winemakers to support great causes and support the next generation of winemaking talent through the Cape Winemakers Guild Trust and the work that it does. It's something we've featured numerous occasions over the years. Today, we feature the latest chapter of the Guild. There is a brand new chair and there are two brand new members. The new chair is, I think, an excellent choice, Sam O'Keefe from Lismore, and her two new members of the Guild are John Seccombe from Thorne and Daughters and Emul Ross from Hamilton Russell. Again, two fine young winemakers. And so they all join me on the show. We'll catch up with them on their respective harvests, but also find out for our chair what lies ahead in the year, and for our new members why it is so exciting, why it is such great peer recognition to be a part of the Cape Winemakers Guild. So that is all on the cards for today's show. Before we jump in to our chat with our new chair and the two new members, let's have a quick look at the wine news from this week. We start with a prize that's up for grabs from the team at Valdo. There is a rather romantic dinner on the cards if you happen to be shopping at Norman Goodfellows over the course of February. Thanks to Valdo, the Italian Prosecco brand that has such a strong following around the world, you could be heading off to enjoy a rather special evening with the Valdo guys. Your chance to not just drink some great Prosecco, but have a terrific evening. So how exactly does it work? Well, you'll need to get in to Norman Goodfellows. You'll need to make sure that you buy yourself a bottle of Valdo, and you're looking at between 209 and 239 Rand on what you're buying. And it is dinner at the Courtyard Hotel at Waterfall City for two people. Online entry is automatic if you're buying online. Otherwise, you'll get to put your details in store. And voila, you are in with a shout, and that's valid until the 14th of February. So get shopping and add some Prosecco to your list. And there's also a Valdo hamper that is up for grabs as well. Happy shopping and good luck. Somebody has to win that. Now, on screen now, there are some very, very happy people. I mentioned this at the top of the show, the Cape Winemakers Guild. Cape Winemakers Guild, Cape Wine Auction, Cape Winemakers Guild auctions later the year, Cape Wine Auction, and you've got over on the left, De Villiers Graaf of De Grendel, Paul Kluwer. No, it's not Niles Crane from Fraser. It is Paul Kluwer, Ken Forrester, Ken Kinsey Quick. You've also got Raymond and Lovu, and you've got Dariel, the auction director, Andy Norton, who runs the Cape Wine Auction Trust, Wendy Applebaum, impossible and wonderful at the same time always. And then Nicholas is a recent member of the trust. He stepped down end of last year. And we raised 9.635 million Rand on Saturday afternoon. Marathi was a lovely venue. Thanks to Ray Melk and his team for looking after us. And it was a sparkling afternoon out, and you can see just how happy the Trust team are, as they should be. A very, very successful day. And a big thank you once again to the Cape Wine Auction team for having me as host and auctioneer, and to everybody who bid so generously to ensure that that sum of money came through at the end of the evening. So well done. And that's great news, because so much money going to so many great causes via the Cape Wine Auction once again. This is an Avondale wine tasting. This is coming up on the 27th of February, so a little later on this month. Some really cool wine being made out in Avondale. It's really interesting wine. There were some of the early adopters of working with amphora and having a bit of fun with some quite old techniques that had fallen out of favor a little. And we'll be drinking the Avondale wine, sampling it, finding out why they make wine the way they do. They've always had a very, very big focus on making wine in as environmentally friendly a way as possible. And they'll have details there. If you'd like to come along, just jump onto the Norman Goodfellows website. It'll cost you R100 of which gets donated to charity. There'll be some canapes on the night, more importantly, some terrific wine, and the chance to meet the winemaker and the chance to drink some wine. And I think I should be joining you for that one as well. So hope to see you on the 27th of February. That's at Norman Goodfellows down in Four Ways for a great night out with Avondale wine. Now, speaking of Norman Goodfellows, I see Shanisani is watching. Hashtag with love Norman. She's got the campaign hashtag just right. Thanks, Shanisani, with love Norman, over Valentine's month. And we're going to be doing something rather special on the Monday of Valentine's week, so look out for that. Right, let's jump into our Cape Winemakers Guild. Great group of people who do terrific work and also celebrate and support each other in a manner we shall, I'm sure, discover over the course of this evening's show. Now, I'm not allowed to look directly at her because she's now Madam Chair and she's terribly important. I'm not even allowed to call her Sam anymore, I think. Probably Her Majesty or Her Imperial Highness or something similar. Sam O'Keefe is the magician behind Wine in Greyton, and the person who through Lismore put the area on the map. She is now the chair of the Cape Winemakers Guild, and she joins me on the show along with the two brand new members, and very proud and happy members, I am sure they are, John Seccombe and Emul Ross. Welcome, guys. Lovely to have you all on the show. Congratulations for two different reasons, two new members and one new chair. With a story, Sam, that every time we think you must surely have written the ultimate chapter in it, and another one like this pops up. How does this rate on the scale of achievement for this mad Californian who was adamant that you could make wine in Greyton when everybody assured you you couldn't, that you now found yourself as the chair of the Cape Winemakers Guild?
Well, it's certainly one of my greatest career achievements. It's, you know, when my colleagues nominated me to become a member and inducted me into the Guild, I thought I'd reached the pinnacle, and now to be the chair, it's such an honor. I'm still pinching myself and trying to understand what it all means, frankly. But yes, it's fantastic, Dan. I can't even explain. You know, I'm so honored to be amongst 42 of the best winemakers in South Africa, and to be the leader for 2 years. It's going to be a great adventure, I'm sure.
And it's one that you will take on with great relish, but also with great support, because we know from when you went through the fire just how much people got behind you and supported you. And you're going to see exactly that support again, because you've got this incredible network of friends who are also great supporters and great admirers, and like me, very, very big fans of the work that you have done. But it will be one that there are many people who perhaps aren't entirely sure the work of over the next couple of years. So give us an idea, first of all, if people are watching, hang on, what is the Cape Winemakers Guild? It sounds like a bit of a secret society. What do you really do? And then what does being chair actually mean, other than giving you a really cool title?
Okay, well, the Guild has been in place for over 40 years. It started as the Cape Independent Winemakers Guild, and evolved into the Cape Winemakers Guild. It's a collection of some of South Africa's top winemakers. The the qualification to be nominated. You must be nominated by a member, and you must be at the top of your game for at least 5 years. So considered really one of the best in the world, hopefully, and be solely responsible for the final quality of the wine that is produced. That's basically, in a nutshell, what the basic qualifications are to be nominated. And then it goes through a vote amongst the members, and it's a secret vote. But those that come out the other side, I have yet to see anybody that wasn't truly deserving, including John and Emul. I'm very thrilled to welcome them this year. It's going to be thrilling to have them on board.
Well, those new members have been congratulated by HM on YouTube as well. Well done, new members, says the mysteriously named HM. And then Andrew Woolguy is always such a great friend and supporter of the show over in North Carolina. Hey, down from a sunny but freezing cold North Carolina. Great show and great guests as always. Busy bees over here importing incredible wines and flying the South African flag over here. I need to get back on the show and give you a proper update soon. Cheers. Andrew, watch your inbox. I'll get in touch in the next day or two. We would love to have you back. Congratulations there from HM. Congratulations from you too, Sam, to our new members. Before I add my congratulations to them, give Emul and John a bit of a sense of why this is such a special group to be part of. What has it meant to you to be a guild member, and how has that changed the way you approach life and the way that you're able to be a part of the wine community?
I actually thought that I'd have some idea of how incredible it would be to be a member of this organization, and yet from the very first meeting, the way that I was welcomed as a member of the family, and you have, as I said, between 40 and 50, depending on the year and the members of South Africa's top winemakers, more generationally and geographically diverse than ever before. Everybody is so helpful. We get together 10 times a year for extremely detailed technical tastings where we taste some of the greatest wines in the world, and a member has done research to really share and enlighten everything that they know about a subject with the other members. But even things like when you're looking for something, when you have equipment issues, when you have questions about your techniques and the things you're going to do for the harvest, being able to reach out and trust your fellow members with your questions, with your vulnerabilities, and to bring all that knowledge into one space. I am a better winemaker because of it. I'm a better person because of it. I frankly, I'm a prouder South African because of it. I feel very honored and very proud to be a South African winemaker. And these last 5-6 years as a guild member has made me even more so. I think John and Emul are in for an incredible experience. And I think they've only just started. They just had their first meeting with everyone. We had a tasting with Gaia from Gaia Wines in Italy, and that was super special, and it's only up from here. Very cool.
Well, if John and Emul weren't already excited enough, I think you've got their expectations absolutely soaring there, Sam, and rightfully so. John, tell us about the moment you found out. How do you find out, and how surprised were you? How excited were you when the news came through?
Well, Dan, it's it's an incredible endorsement from a group of peers and older members that I respect very much. I really admire all of the members of the guild, and it really is quite a fantastic endorsement. When you get that call. Duncan Savage nominated me, and Neil Silberg seconded the nomination. But obviously, you go to a secret vote. You never know. But I think even having that nomination was a very important moment, and I think to come through the vote with Emul has just been an amazing experience. And I don't think it's really set in yet. Just quite the scope of what it means to to my professional life. But I think Sam's already been a great support in that respect. I think leading and guiding us already, and into what we can expect from the guild and being members of the guild.
The story of Samantha O'Keefe is one of the great South African stories, somebody who improbably ended up in the wine world and in a particular part of the wine world. And this is another terrific chapter. There's not a huge dissimilarity with your own story, because if things had gone ever so slightly differently, if memory serves, you could still be in the UK fixing computers and working in a completely different world. I guess that probably adds to the surrealism of this particular accolade.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think not that I was a complete outsider having grown up in South Africa, but I think I spent a lot of years living in the UK, doing, having another professional life, and then studying winemaking in the UK. So, when I came to the wine industry here, I did feel like I was, coming a little bit from the outside. So I think that's what makes this this endorsement all the more special, because I haven't spent those early years. I didn't study with a lot of the people here, so it's been an incredible 10, 12 years that we've been back in South Africa, and I think to have this recognition from peers and mentors is really something special.
And you talk about those peers and mentors. I was listening to one of the young cricketers. I think it was one of the young England players talking about how making his debut in this India series was so excited because he got to play against Jimmy Anderson, who had a poster of up in his bedroom when he was a kid. I'm not sure if there were posters of any of the guild members up, but to now be alongside some of the modern greats of South African winemaking, is that still goosebump stuff?
Oh, certainly. And I think, Sam talked about the network we have. And I think the little invitation to the CWG WhatsApp group was, pretty special. I think if you look down the list of names of people whose phone numbers maybe I didn't have before, and, thinking that you now have this this hotline to, the greats of the industry, it's quite surreal to think of yourself as being part of that. And I think, it brings with it a little bit of performance pressure, certainly. I think we're feeling that. There's pressure to, to put out a very good auction wine, so I think I think it's a really great experience, and I think will help raise my game overall.
I'm not sure how much it can. I've been drinking rather a lot of Thorne and Daughters over the holidays and over the summer, and it's pretty good wine already, but we shall watch. And we'll also find out a little later whether there are any thoughts from John as to what that auction wine might be that he'll need to start giving some thought to. Let's jump over to his fellow new member. Emul, congratulations to you too. And again, fantastic news and extremely well-deserved. What was the process like for you in terms of finding out that you were part of this elite squad of winemakers?
It was quite top secret initially. I was nominated by JD and seconded by Gordy Newton-Johnson. And then, if I remember correctly, just before Christmas holidays, Sam called me and basically said, I've been nominated, but if I tell anyone, she's going to find me and kill me. So it was a bit of top secret initially, but it hasn't really set in. It's as John said, it's an amazing thing to be a group of people to be part of, and I look forward to the learning that's going to come from it.
If you're picking up a touch of Grace Jones to Emul, he's very bravely joining us on the show after a rather nasty bug that hit his throat over the weekend. But I think the excitement is more than carrying you through. And it does look genuine. And as with John talking about this new group to be part of, you now have the opportunity to have these tastings, to be part of the WhatsApp group, to bounce stuff off peers at the very top end of the game. And we will talk about the charity work in a moment. But just for that peer network that you now have, it is an extraordinary resource for a young winemaker.
Absolutely. Look, I think in South Africa, we're very fortunate to, across the industry, generally get along quite well. It certainly is a massive strength that we have as an industry. But I think what the Guild gives you as a member is something a little bit more sort of intimate and technical. There's a really immediate base of or group of people to ask questions and to learn from or give some advice where you can. So it's a bit more sort of focused and within arm's reach. So it's a privilege to be in there.
And then I must ask, because they're generally a quite upbeat and positive lot, how much excitement was there up at the Manor on the Hill when Oliver and Anthony found out the news?
I had to keep it I had to keep it secret from them as well, but they were very excited when I broke the news to them. Yeah, I mean, it's they're both excited, and Anthony's already wondering what the guild wine will be, but that's something I'll decide on, and it'll be if and when something really special comes along.
I don't think that'll take too long, because you do have a habit of doing things that are rather special, as does the guild as a whole. And Sam, I know this is a driving part of what you do, the philanthropy that sits at the heart of so much of the Cape Winemakers Guild activity. First of all, tell me a bit about the process of the young winemakers, the apprentices, the young stars you bring into the wine world and foster a development of. How much does that mean to you, and how much of an impact are you seeing this process have on the wine industry in South Africa?
The Cape Winemakers Guild protege program is very, very close to my heart. I've been honored to be part of it as the vice chair. I was vice chair under Gordon Newton-Johnson. You sit on the trust, and it's basically the direct link between the guild and the development trust, which runs the protege program. It is a program that has run for over 14 years, and we've put 36 young winemakers through the program. Basically, young winemakers from previously disadvantaged backgrounds or underrepresented backgrounds in the industry. When they qualify as winemakers, they either graduate from Stellenbosch or from Elsenburg. They can apply to be in the program. So they're already qualified winemakers, but then they have a 3-year program where they work with 3 guild members, one member each year. So they're actually working side by side and being mentored by the top winemakers in South Africa. In year 2, they get sent to Burgundy and they do a tour of France. So they really get immersed in the wine culture of the world. In year 2, they also make their own wine, which is auctioned off at the end of year 3. So when these young people finish this program, they're some of the most qualified young people in South Africa. And it is so moving to see the development from a shy young new graduate to a confident, world-traveled, well-spoken. In those 3 years, they're also given soft skill classes, from public speaking with Toastmasters, accounting. If they don't know how to drive, they're taught to drive. They're presentation skills. And they really, 3 years later, come out so polished and so impressive. It is incredibly moving. And during my 3 years that I've been involved directly with the program, it has been, just by coincidence, all young women. And so that's very close to my heart, to be able to really be a role model for them and be involved in everything that they do, and to see that growth. I am so proud. And we have a 99% success rate. All of these young people are all still engaged in the industry, except for 1 or 2. Many of them have their own brands. A couple of them are head winemakers in different positions. And the success is unlike many charitable organizations. And it's really something that I think inspires all of us as guild members. And it's not entirely what we do at the guild, but it's a reminder every day of where South Africa needs to be. And I'm very, very proud of that.
And certainly not to discount the wine knowledge that the proteges get, because they get an enormous amount over those 3 years. But to reinforce that point you make about the soft skills and the soft landing, a lot of the proteges are coming in come from very different worlds to the world of winemaking, not just from a day-to-day job, but from a cultural and social perspective. And I think that immersion into the wine world through the protege program really just ramps up the ability for young people to find their feet, gain that confidence, and see the transition that you've already referenced from beginning of year 1 to end of year 3, in terms of people who are ready to not just make great wine, but deal with the world of wine in such an accomplished manner.
100%. That's exactly right. And especially as young women, let's say a young woman from Limpopo, you are immersed in this world. I was just explaining to someone, they attend our technical tastings as well with all of the guild members. And I said to one of our members who was a man, never underestimate just being in that room, what it does for them to stand there with Charles Hopkins and Carl Schultz and John Seccombe and Emul and, Gordon Newton-Johnson and Bartu Eckstein and Samantha O'Keefe and Andrew Molyneux and everybody else, and to be spoken to as a colleague, to be able to taste those wines and speak with us. It's everyday interactions. It's being in a cellar with all men and having to hone leadership skills, communication skills, conflict mitigation skills. It is really an experience that is unmatched, and very few winemakers of any background have an opportunity to have that kind of training. And so it stands alone in the world as one of a kind, and it's uniquely South African. And I suspect over time, as we graduate more and more winemakers, we're going to see previous proteges working in other countries and flying the flag for South Africa as well.
I also don't think it'll be too long before we see a protege followed by many more as members of the guild themselves. Ex Animo Wine Company, our favourite Australian from an admittedly short list, busy watching, excited to see what the guild does in 2024. Dino Davino selling some great wine over in the UK. Congrats, John. Thanks, Dean. Good to have you on the show. And Lisa Harlow. I remember John when he was the Somm at Oloroso in Edinburgh. What a long way he has come. Love the rocking horse. That journey, John, is one that has seen many people help you along the way, give you guidance, give you mentorship. How much does the opportunity to now do the same for proteges mean to you?
Well, Dan, I think that's what I was saying about, a little bit of pressure on your game. If I look at the work that's already been done by the guild, and, Duncan Savage is a very, very good friend of mine. And, if I see the value that he contributes there with the proteges that he's mentored, it's really incredible to see. And I really hope that I can live up to that expectation and contribute to what the guild does, because I think, just looking at the quality of people that is coming through that program, it really is quite exceptional. And I think the passion of people like, Sam and Gordy and all the other members, and we talked about Charles Hopkins, so many of the members contribute so much of their time and energy that, that wouldn't otherwise have to do. And I think it's, they really pay it forward, for the industry. And I think what's being built by the guild, for the next generation is really, really something special. And yeah, I think there's definitely a pressure to live up to that, to all the good work that's been done.
The work is supported by, amongst other things, the auction initiative. It's always one of the highlights of the wine year with Nedbank, and you guys will be hard at work as a guild getting ready for that. Will there be a John Seccombe wine for this year? And if so, have you started to think what that might be?
Well, I think, obviously won't be submitting a wine, because the wines that you submit have to be made for the guild. So because Emul and I were only elected this year, it will be from 2024 that we'll be able, vintage wines. So obviously I've started to frame that in my mind, but I think, one of the things that I'm passionate about is seeing how South Africa delivers incredible manifestations of grapes that have, you know, another spiritual home, you know. And I think one of the things that I'm very passionate about is, you know, what Semillon can do in South Africa, what Chenin can do, you know, very far away from their spiritual homes in the Loire and, you know, in Bordeaux. You know, I think if I start sort of framing it around that, you'll see something along those lines. And as you know, I'm quite a big fan of blending, so, you know, it may well be a blend. And yeah, I'm definitely scouring, you know, our vineyard holdings now, and, you know, starting to formulate ideas. But, you know, the wonderful thing about harvest, it's a very high energy time, and I think, you know, gives a lot of kind of gets the creative juices flowing.
Yeah, how nerve-wracking is this, even for as accomplished a winemaker as you, John? You've got to make wine to stand up with the very best winemakers in the country.
Yeah, no, and I think the rule is that if you don't have a wine on the auction for 3 years, you're no longer a member. So there, you know, there's palpable pressure, and I think, you know, if you look at the quality of wines that's coming out, yeah, there's definitely a lot of pressure. But I think if we look at, you know, the support network that the Guild provides, the technical tastings, you know, the wealth of technical knowledge, and, you know, and I think the openness of the members, I think, you know, you can't help but be able to put out some really, really good wines and raise your game.
Emul, there are a number of winemakers who've built up a bit of a tradition, either using existing wines, but the very best version thereof. I think of something like Arbery's Pour Sour as his Cape Winemakers Guild wine from Canoncop. John Lobsher with his Big Dog series, a great collection of bubbles that emerge every year. What's the Emul thinking? Go with the Pinot Noir, the Chardonnay, for which Hamilton Russell is so rightly famed, or go a little left field and surprise everybody with something else?
Look, for this vintage, I've got a few ideas of what I think, you know, might become the Guild wine. You know, I try and make everything as well as I can, but I've got a few very cool experiments that I'm doing with, or that I will do with Pinotage off the property when that comes in. And then I've got a few favorite blocks of Chardonnay, which I sort of bottle small amounts of just for our own, you know, companies learning and technical tasting sort of things. But I might very well have one of those blocks in the lineup. We'll see how they turn out. The fruit's still hanging out there, so we'll see how it goes.
I think that translates as watch this space from Emul. We certainly will do that. I'd like to also get your thoughts, just stepping back to what we chatted to Sam and John about the Protege program and that initiative, the chance to give young people this opportunity. Not that long ago, you were also a young winemaker, just finding his feet and developing the skills which are now loved all over the world. How important is that platform for you to be able to be a part of and to support?
I think it's absolutely amazing. I would love to contribute in that way. It's, you know, I've been fortunate enough to work with some really, quite a few of the Guild members actually along my sort of career, and I don't think you can emphasize how important that is. It just from all aspects, as Sam was saying, from the actual winemaking to the presentation of things, the whole package gets done so well if you work with the right people, and it would be a real honor if I could contribute to that through the Protege program one day.
I've got absolutely zero doubt that is exactly what you will do, and do a great deal of in your wine career to come, Emul. Let's jump away from the Guild for just a moment, as we've got three winemakers in different parts of the winemaking country with us. John, what is harvest looking like? How's it been so far? How far into it are you? And how large is the smile on the Thorne and daughter's face? Looks like we've got a frozen John there. We'll try and get him back in a moment. Let's fire that one off then to Emul up in the Emul Valley. I know the cool temperatures. Harvesting does sometimes start a little later. Have you begun? And what is 2024 looking like, Emul?
We have begun with a few young blocks. We actually started with Chardonnay first this year, which is quite different to what we normally do. I've got young blocks of Pinot in already, a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc at Southern Right. So we've started taking, just checking if the equipment's broken or not. I think next week we'll get into the full swing of things. We've had a lot of wind this season and quite a few particularly hot days. So I think the fruit that's going to come in might have lower acids than we'd like, but generally it's reasonably healthy, and we'll have to work with what we have. What I have seen is that I think because of all the wind we had during flowering, it's quite patchy. So you're finding quite a few grapes in one part of the vineyard, and then the other side almost nothing, depending on how the wind hit it. So that's a challenge. But I think we're good with challenges in South Africa, and we'll get through it and hopefully make some great wines.
We certainly are used to the challenges, and we certainly have had many of them over the last few years. Has there been any lasting impact from last year's storms on the harvest that you can pick up?
The September storms, no, we were fortunate. We had we didn't have much erosion issues or anything. We did lose a bit of fruit with the winds that we had. There were massive winds in September, but from a soil point of view, we were quite lucky. Below the farm, unfortunately, that there's a 12,000-year-old peatland, wetland, and that got completely washed out on this river. So that's a real pity, and we lost our labeling shed due to trees that fell on it. But apart from losing some bunches, to the wind, we don't have much other issues yet.
Oh, glad to hear that. 2024 vintage sounding quite promising there for Hamilton Russell, the lower acidity notwithstanding. I think we've got John back. John, harvest so far, have you been hard at work, and how are the grapes looking so far?
Yeah, it's been a very busy couple of weeks, and unfortunately the dead phone was a casualty. It's definitely the number one tool of the harvest is communication is key. It's been a very busy start to harvest. I think going from a very wet spring, we've had a very, very hot and dry summer, which is it's making things very challenging. So far quality looks good. Yields on certain blocks are fine. We've had a few blocks which are a little bit down, but so far so good. But I think just caught the tail end of what Emul was saying. The acids are a little bit lower, so we've just got to really keep an eye on things and make sure that we pick at the right time. It does seem to be cooling down, which I hope will help the tail end of the harvest.
And in that harvest, is there anything new on the horizon for 2024 from a winemaker? He's always got a flicker of invention to him.
Yeah, there's always one or two blocks. Taken a couple more little things in Stellenbosch, also in Riebeek Castile. So there's always one or two little hectares, one or two little tons that we're experimenting with. I've got some new blocks of Mourvedre, which are really exciting. And someone can always twist my arm during the harvest with an offer of something interesting that I'll always fold and bring something interesting into the cellar.
We'll try and elicit a promise from John to let us know as soon as he's decided what new mysteries he's added to the Thorne and Daughters range. What about the harvest out in Greyton, Sam? How is it going so far? I know you've been traveling a bit, but how's it looking? How confident, excited are you for what's to come for 2024?
I'm really excited. We here in Greyton, we have a special microclimate. The southeast wind, which has really tormented everybody this season, brings us rain. So we've had quite a bit of rain. It's been quite a wet season for me, but it hasn't been too much. Last year, it was way too much rain, and very cool. And it was a really challenging vintage, where this year, it just feels like it's abundant in a good way. And the temperatures have been warm enough, but not too hot. We also are having a bit of a heat wave right now, but I don't think it's going to be exceptionally early for me. For the non-reserve wines, I buy fruit from Walker Bay and Stanford and Elgin, and those all look to be almost on track. I don't think they'll be particularly early. It might be a week, 6-7 days early, but it's not going to be exceptionally early out here in the Cape South Coast. It's looking really, really promising, and you know, I need an easy harvest. so I'm counting on this one to be relatively painless from my side and the vineyards that I get fruit from. It's looking really good.
You certainly do deserve one, but it might be something people aren't entirely sure about. An easy harvest? What makes one easy? What makes one difficult? For people for whom the harvest is a sort of slightly romantic but fuzzy notion where grapes come in and wines are made. But what for you makes an easy harvest as opposed to a difficult one?
An easy harvest has at least a balanced crop. And the sugars climb slowly, and so you're able to catch the right time. Emul and John both mentioned, you know, getting the picking right, and sometimes last year it was so cool. Making that call was very, very difficult, and the levels of anxiety that I had were through the roof. And this year, I mean, if the heat spike, then all of a sudden you may find yourself like everything needs to come off now, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to race, at least from the vineyards that I work with. I think making that call is it's the most important call you make as a winemaker, is when to pick. We can't put the grapes back on the vine if we pick too early, and if we pick too late, the acids drop out, and we possibly have alcohols that are too high. So it's getting the pick date right is the single most difficult responsibility that a winemaker has. But at least from the vineyards that I work with in the Cape South Coast region and in Grayton, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a terrible harvest for us. Yeah.
Which translates to big smiles on the faces of those of us who are fans of the wines of Lismore. And I think that's a list that seems to grow by the day. Let's go back to the guild then, just before we wrap up the show. John, I know making the wine is going to be important. Spending time with your peers as new member of the club is going to be important. But if we were to sit down in a year's time, what would you like to be able to look back on and say, right, this was a successful first 12 months for me as a new member of the Cape Winemakers Guild?
Well, I lost you there. Yeah, I've still got you. Yeah, I think I'd like to be able to look back and say, you know, we made some good wines this year. That's certainly very important. And, you know, that I sort of, put my guild training wheels on and, you know, and learn the ropes and, you know, fulfill everyone's expectations of me. And yeah, look, it would be really great to have a 2024 guild white blend, you know, in the bag and approved. That would be a great start. But I think, you know, like Sam says, I think there's still a lot to learn during the year, and I think I'm looking forward to learning the ropes, you know, under Sam as chairperson, and you know, and getting to know the guild, and bringing my side. I think that's the main thing.
Well, it'll be a pretty successful year. And then just in closing from you, John, as you look at this year, what do you think is going to be turning heads in South Africa from a wine perspective? What varietals, what regions, what exciting wine do you think we should be looking out for this year?
Oh, you know, I've got my little side project with Pinot Noir. You know, I think each year we plant better Pinot Noir. We make better Pinot Noir as the vineyards mature. I think we're working with some very, very young vineyards up in the Himalaya Ridge, which are unbelievably promising. So, taking the quality of our wines up there a lot. And I think Syrah as well. It's such an exciting varietal. I think we're starting to work with it extremely well. There's really a lot of great examples of Syrah in South Africa, and I think each year as all of us grow and mature and understand more about what we're doing, I think South Africa makes better wines, and I think when we travel with our wines now, you can certainly see that. I think there's a real buzz around South Africa about 10 years ago in London, and if anything, that buzz has actually become a bit more intense rather than tailing off. Everyone says that wave's going to crash, but I think actually South Africa is becoming generally more exciting with each passing year.
I don't disagree with that at all. 2024, another exciting year in store for South African wine, with wines like Thorne and Daughters very much part of that excitement, as are the wines of Hamilton Russell. The same question to you, Emul, that I put to John a moment ago. If you've got your feet up over a glass of wine in a year's time, which you probably wouldn't because you'll be back in harvest, but if you were looking back, what for you on reflection would have made it a good first year as a member of the Cape Winemakers Guild?
Wow. I think just getting to know the ropes and to see how the whole process works will be great. So I hope to have a clearer understanding of all of that by the end of the year, and hopefully have something really special to contribute for the 2025 auction. That would be a success for me.
I can see prices skyrocketing already as Emil's auction lot kicks in. And what about the year ahead, 2024? Who are the producers? What are the varietals? What's the wine that you think is really going to excite people this year?
Look, I think there's so many fantastic winemakers in the country, and as John says, the buzz hasn't really stopped for South Africa. There's just, it feels like the wines are getting better and better. So I'm a big fan of Chardonnay, as you know. I think there's some really, really good, really good Chardonnays out there, and I've just seen in the international markets how people are really now getting to find these wines and enjoy them, and I just think we're on such a good upward trend. I hope we can look back at the end of 2024 and see how we've grown as a country.
That's very much a collective aim, I think, for South African wine, and people like Emul will certainly help us to get there. Right, over to Madam Chair. Sam, for 2024, as the new chair, what are the benchmarks? What are the aims? What's going to allow you in a year's time to look back and say, right, halfway through my tenure, and I'm pretty happy with what's happened?
Any organization is only as good as its parts, and we have had a lot of changes in the guild membership over the last couple of years, with some of the great names in the wine industry stepping down and making room for new members, and bringing in Emul and John and the new members that have come in the last few years. The organization is stronger than ever before. We have a lot of new energy. As I mentioned earlier, it's generationally and geographically more diverse than ever before. When the guild started, it was very Stellenbosch centric, and now we're very evenly spread through, let's say, Swartland, Stellenbosch, Cape South Coast, obviously as far away as the Cedarburg. And so it's really exciting. I think anyone who looks at the guilds, at the wines that are going to come out of the guild this year, they won't be able to argue that we have some of the most exciting wine producers in South Africa making some of the greatest wines in the world, not just out of this country. And yeah, I think watch this space. We're all ready for it.
Somebody who shares that admiration of South African winemakers is Josephine Prieur, checking in as she does so often. From our winter Burgundy, we would like to wish a very promising and exciting harvest 2024 for all our winemakers friends. Très bon vendage 2024. Merci bien, Josephine. J'espère que c'est l'année que je visitais on Burgundy. Did Bordeaux last year, so hopefully this year sneak into Burgundy, in which case I shall be in touch. Sam, just to wrap up, taking off the, I'm not sure if it's a hat, more of a crown of the Cape Winemakers Guild, and just looking at it from a wine producer, wine drinker, wine lover's perspective, what's going to excite the world of wine from a South African perspective in 2024?
What I'm seeing out there, I don't produce one, but Cabernet Franc is really coming on strong. Hey, I think it's going to be an incredibly strong category in the new buzz grape for the next year or so. Stellenbosch, the Stellenbosch producers, the members that we have in Stellenbosch, they produced very Cabernet Franc heavy Bordeaux blends for the auction in 2023, if not straight Cabernet Franc. And so I think that's a really exciting category. We also have some new, varieties that have been planted and experimented with, not just with our members, but with other producers that are more drought resistant. So yeah, I think there's some exciting stuff. I mean, look, what we do really, really well. But there's a lot of innovation happening out there. And I think there's going to be some cool stuff coming through in the next couple of years. But Cabernet Franc, I think, is the trend right now.
And again, one I'd agree with, a lot of great Cabernet Franc floating about at the moment, not just from the usual suspects like Brewer Arts and Gerard Holden and the guys at Rainbow's End, but so many others as well. I think that is a great pick indeed. Cape Verde Import, greetings from Belgium. Lismore is amazing wine. It most certainly is. Nice to have some of our Belgians watching the show. And I think Dean is referring here to John saying there was no pressure with a no pressure then, haha, says Dean. None at all, just have to live up to the brilliance of the rest of the guild in making your wine. Guys, to all of you, thank you so much for being on the show once again. Best of luck, Sam, with your year ahead, 2 years ahead, but this one in particular. It really is another fantastic and well-deserved addition to your wonderful story. And the Guild has got a great person at the helm for the next couple of years. And also two fantastic new members in Emul and John. And not just because you make outstanding wine, but two really good people as part of the Guild as well. And I know our next generation of winemakers will benefit from exactly that. So to all of you, I hope to see plenty of you during the course of the year and the slow build-up towards the auction at the beginning of October. Best of luck with what remains of harvest. We shall be sampling as soon as we possibly can. And thanks again for joining the show, and good luck with Guild operations for 2024.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.
So there we go. Samantha O'Keefe, the new chair of the Cape Winemakers Guild and winemaker and proprietor at Lismore in Greyton. John Seccombe, the wizard behind Thorne and Daughters, and Emul Ross, making wine so well, not just here, but in Oregon as well, under the Hamilton Russell label. Three terrific winemakers, three wonderful people, and three very driven wine people when it comes to ensuring that the Guild continues to do the terrific work that it has now for so many years. That wraps us up for now. Join us again on the show on Thursday, when I shall be joined by three of the 4 award winners at the Wine Harvest commemoration last week, led by Tim Hutchinson, who received the 1652 Wine Visionary Leadership Award, the chair of DGB, who has done so much for wine in South Africa, as well as Kathy Marsden, who runs the Wine Centre and has contributed to the education of so many people in the wine industry, and Ilse Rutherford from Compagnies Drift, who has also been a major player in changing the face of South African wine. So they will all join me on the show on Thursday. I'll let our winemakers get back to their harvest. Keep an eye out for the Cape Winemakers Guild later on this year. We'll be doing a lot with Nedbank in the build-up to that and celebrating. Great platform, terrific wine. I think most importantly, just some wonderful, wonderful people. That does it for today on Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. We'll see you back again on Thursday. Goodbye.